At one point, I literally grabbed my leg, I folded up in my crotch, and I held it between my thighs. Like I literally carried my leg down the mountain because it was so severely injured, right? And that was one of the feelings of, I know what it feels like to die, right? I know, and it's not scary, by the way, right? The feeling of death is comforting. The feeling of death is a way out, right? The feeling of death is closure, something that when you are living in that much pain, it's not a scary thing. I always think about the conversation that I had with God. I said, God, this is all I got.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Show here in Texas with my friend John Wayne Walding, and you did hear that right, by the way, John Wayne. And if you don't know John Wayne, you will today because his story is absolutely amazing. So I'm gonna read his bio really quick. Sergeant First Class retired John Wayne Walding was born on the 4th of July and raised in Groesbeck, Texas. He served 12 years in the U.S. Army, including 7 with the elite 3rd Special Forces Group. In 2008, during the Battle of Shok Valley, he lost his leg to sniper fire and kept fighting for 4 more hours, earning the Silver Star and Purple Heart. He went on to become the first amputee to graduate Special Forces Sniper School, completing multiple marathons and the Bataan Death March. He serves on the board of the Best Defense Foundation and went on to found Gallantry Global Logistics, a veteran-owned company giving warriors their next mission. He now travels the country speaking on resilience, faith, and leadership, but his greatest pride, his wife Amy, and their 4 children. The Waldings live in Gunter, Texas, and we are blessed to have John Wayne with us here in the studio. Awesome to have you here, bro.
It's an honor to be here, Chad. Thanks for having me.
Well, I gotta ask what everybody's asking, what everybody's wondering. You're named John Wayne. You were born on the 4th of July. You're a Green Beret sniper. You've earned a Silver Star and a Purple Heart.
There should be a bald eagle back there somewhere.
There should be a bald eagle.
Yeah.
What I got to ask, what is it like to be so freaking cool?
Not as cool as you think, right? I always tell the story about whenever I found out, why did somebody name me, my dad named me John Wayne. And I wish I could give you this great story, but he was a hippie, and he said, I don't know, had a cool birthday, needed a cool name.
Yeah.
That's why he was obviously a huge fan of John Wayne, and since I was born on the 4th, he named me after them, and I've been fortunate to become a Green Beret, which John Wayne did the movie, The Green Berets. And so I've did
Was that part of the inspiration? Like, I'm born on the 4th of July, my name's John Wayne, I got to be a Green Beret now.
I don't know. If God ever put it in black and white, what somebody needs to do, right? He did it for me. And just blessed and honored to serve in a capacity very few's ever been able to do. And did a lot of push-ups for John Wayne's name. Like, as you probably know, there's a lot of sayings in the Army, like, who do you think you are, John Wayne, right? And, and I've got the right to remain silent, but not the ability. And so I did a lot of push-ups for that guy.
Well, I got to tell the audience the story of how we met. The Kyle family, Chris Kyle's family, Mr. Wayne Kyle asked me to be the keynote speaker for one of Chris Kyle's memorial events. Right. And so I didn't know who you were, and I'm waiting to go up and speak. And there's 2 people that preceded me to speak. One was this lady who did an amazing job. And then walks up on the stage as John Wayne, born on the 4th of July, a Green Beret sniper, missing his leg, got a Silver Star, Purple Heart. And I'm like, how do I follow up that? And so I remember telling Mr. Wayne, I'm like, you totally set me up. Don't do that to me again. And then I go down to speak at the Texas Rangers, and you're there again.
Right. Now I got to follow Chad Robichaux, Mr. Marine Recon and UFC guy. I'm like, come on, guys. It's like Chuck E. Cheese filling in for Mickey Mouse, right?
No, man. It's been an honor to get to know you and speak alongside of you those events. But you're a Texan, grew up in Texas, and before you were John Wayne, the Green Beret sniper, you grew up as just a Southern Texas boy. Tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up, your life before the Army.
Yeah, I thank God for the childhood that he gave me, because it was awesome and it sucked. Yeah. Right? I got to learn what love is, and I've also got to learn what struggle is, right? I jokingly always say, don't believe my resume because it's awesome. Yeah. Right? What my resume don't say is, the first memory of my dad was seeing him go to jail. right? I distinctly remember being in the back seat of my grandmother's town car. I was probably, I don't know, 5, 6 years old at the time. We were pulling into the parking lot. And we had to stop because there was a chain of 8 convicts in orange jumpsuits, right, chained to each other, just like you would think it would look like. Well, we had to stop because they were passing in front of those. Well, lo and behold, look at them, and one of them was my dad. Right, he looked over at me, and he was just depressed and had that somber face. My grandmother, she's in the front seat crying because that's her son right there. And, you know, me and my little brother, he's my bigger brother, we're in the back seat there. And that's quite literally, Chad, I'm not lying. Like, that is the first memory I have. You know, he was going from county lockup to the courthouse to get sentenced. Right. So we go into that courtroom and it was for drugs. You know, I always tell everybody that my dad was, you know, good guy, bad parent, right? Was a hippie, loved to smoke dope and do the fun stuff. Didn't want to grow up and be a dad. And he got sentenced to jail. Well, you know, my mom, she was already in jail, right? I jokingly say I'm 100% Texan because I'm half Mexican. My mom, she's Beret Horta, right? And then my dad, you know, he, at one point he was a roughneck, right? So oil and tacos. That doesn't get much more American
That's
or
very
Texan than
yeah.
that, right?
It's like a Tex-Mex.
That's it. Yeah, love some tacos. And you know, so I go, you know, to my dad's, you know, the white side of the family, right? My grandfather and grandmother, Sam and Grace, they lived in a small town called Groesbeck, 40 miles east of Waco, up at a lake house. And because he was going to retire, you know, he didn't know that his son was going to go to jail, and now he's got to raise some kids, you know. But I go from that kid, you know, in Victoria, Texas, up to now this little redneck town. And that's where I learned how to be a man, right? I thank God that he, you know, showed my parents, because they showed me what wrong looks like, right? I can look at my dad and say, okay, that's not the guy I want. And by the way, I don't have ill will toward him. You know, we've had the forgiveness and even the reconciliation, you know, between each other. He understood, you know, where he struggled as a father, and I don't have that hate in my heart for him. But, you know, the facts are the facts, right? And so I just have that understanding, you know, that's not the dad I want to be, but also have a man like Sam Walding, who's my grandfather, who's my hero. I named my firstborn son Sam after him. That's how much he meant to me. And then my grandmother, you know, Grace Walding, to show me what love really is. And to go to that little town. And, you know, my granddaddy, he was one of those guys, man, born in the Great Depression, just a hard man, right? Like, we don't have men like we did back in the day.
Right.
Like, here's a perfect example. He had back surgery. You know, I don't remember what year it was, and I never will forget, the same day he got home from back surgery, he got on our lawnmower and was mowing the yard. Why? Because his knucklehead grandson didn't mow the yard while he was gone, and it needed to get done, right? And he was just one of those guys, you get up and you go to work. And that mantra, you know, has stayed with me throughout my entire life. Like, you know, my 16th birthday, again, born on the 4th of July, right? Yeah. So this is the 4th. We hauled over 1,600 square bales of hay that day, right? So on 4th of July, my granddaddy's got my butt out there in the hayfield slinging hay for 12 hours, right? And why? Because it was harvest time. The hay was cut, had rain coming in the next couple of days, whatever, work needed to get done.
We had some similarities, man. I was raised pretty much by my grandparents, and one of my grandparents was a commercial catfisherman, and the other baled hay for a living. And all the grandkids were out there slinging bales. You started off when you were small enough, you had 2 of you on one bale, and then eventually you got your own bale, and all day out there.
And you'll learn stacking them is the easy part.
Yeah.
Right? It's when you get inside that barn that's 140 degrees with rats and snakes.
So I was going to say snakes in there.
You're stacking 7 high, you're climbing up it.
Rattlesnakes, copperheads love hay.
Yeah. I never will forget when I was in basic training, somebody asked me, who's here done something hard than this? I'm like, man, I don't know what world you come from, but yeah, hauling hay in August is a lot harder than just putting on a little ruck and going for a walk.
So look, you are like probably, you know, one of the most principled guys that I've met, especially, I mean, your faith. I know you talked about, like, when I go speak, like, I don't care what speaking event's going to be, like, they're going to hear about Jesus.
That's right.
Like, and they're going to know up front, they're going to hear about Jesus. You're really bold on your faith. You're very principled. You have some like zero tolerance, like, lines in your life. Like, you tell me you don't have social media.
Right.
So if anybody wants to go follow John Wayne on social media, you're not going to find him.
That's
like,
right.
Where do these principles come from? Your grandparents, your faith, Kind of like
everything,
Yeah.
so my faith is, it is that paper that everything is drawn on.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just something that it's not another line item in the things to do today. It's the paper that all those line items are drawn. And what I mean by that is, I made it as you had just mentioned, I've got a kind of a very no nonsense type of no excuses type of mentality when it comes to doing life. And by the way, it hasn't always been this way. There's a long story of resilience of me, quite literally being back broken on the battlefield, right, to, getting sober, dealing with sobriety, not just off of alcohol, but, opioids and everything. But my faith, I just made it a point to put faith first.
Yeah.
Right. It is paramount. It is the first thing that I do. It is everything that revolves around there, full stop. And, when I pray to God, I ask him not to make my life easier, but give me the shoulders that can bear his yoke. Right. God, make me a hard man that has the will to endure what you have for my life. Right. Not this little fairy and genie that if I just rub it, he's going to give me this blessing and this blessing. No, and that's what was my first prayer about my walk with faith. God, give me the courage that no matter where I am, I'm going to speak your name, right? Give me the boldness, the fearlessness of no matter whether it's in business, whether it's on the stage, whether it's back in the military, as that's something that it's not talked about a lot, right? A lot of Spartan guys, they want to watch the movie 300 and try to kick people down a cliff. Right, but they don't want to open up, the book of Romans and read about, Romans 8:1. Therefore, now there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ, right? And so that's where it started for me, was just having that delineation, God's first, right? And what helped me get there, well, frankly, was my sobriety. As an SF guy, same thing with you being in special operations, being in the UFC, I think we both have that addictive trait.
Yep.
Right? That's a blessing.
Yep.
Right? I'm trying to strip this negative connotation toward this addictive trait to want to just keep going and push further. I think God made us that way for his glory, right? And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. We dang sure shouldn't run from it. We should be like, yeah, anything worth doing is worth overdoing, like being a follower of Christ, like being a good husband, right? Like being a good father, like being a good leader to my team, right? I think that's worth being, the best that you can be. And so, part of that is with opioids and all the things, that happens from there. But yeah, sobriety really was the first thing to kind of give me a reality check, right? Because it kind of just hides everything.
Yeah.
Right, I'm just, this guy's, I'm just going to relax, right, and have a couple beers, or I'm going to relax, and, I got to take the edge off, or whatever, word you want to use. Well, when I just made a statement to stop doing that, well, that's where everything just really, and it wasn't fun, Chad. Like, it was hard.
Yeah.
It sucked. It sucked a lot, man. And
especially coming off opioid, right? Like,
yeah, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me going straight into it now, but, I can. I got shot. And what do? They give you meds.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to bash the VA or the military, TRICARE and all that to say they overprescribe. For sure there's some part of that. Having said that, generally speaking, it's been my experience that if you want to get better, there are ways to do that, right? It's not a perfect machine by any stretch. And but having said that, I'll never will forget. I was at Walter Reed Army Medical Centers where I did my rehab, and I did convalescent leave, right? I was in the hospital for a little bit, and finally I was like, man, I just got to get out of here, right? I got to get out of D.C. I got to get out of all the hurt people. I got to get out of all the appointments. Let me just go be home for a little bit, right? To go back to brag and be around my guys. And so I took a few weeks off, and when I was in the pharmacy, and there was quite literally 3 big like lunch, papers, lunch sacks full of meds, because they were giving me 30 days worth of meds, and I was a senior non-commissioned officer at a time in special operations. And I had the wherewithal to say, man, I shouldn't be responsible for this.
Yeah.
Right. That's how much they were giving me, and again, to put that into perspective, everybody probably knows what a Percocet is, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You know what's inside it, right? What's inside a Percocet? It's 325 milligrams of acetaminophen. That's Tylenol. Well, it's 5 milligrams of Oxy, right? Oxycontin's that opioid epidemic that we have, right? They were prescribing me 80 milligrams of straight Oxy 3 times a day. On top of anti-psych meds, right? On top of antidepressant meds, on top anti meds, like all this stuff that I was taking, man, I was a zombie.
And no exit strategy for it.
All
at
of
all. Yeah. As much as you want for as long as you want.
Right. You know, you know, I that's just an example of just how doped up I was. Right. And
let's I mean, I definitely want to get there. Let's go back to like how that all started, because we were talking about you growing up, and what you joined the Army, what just a Texas thing to do, or why'd you join the Army?
Well, I joined the Army going back to how my grandfather raised me, where, you know, men go to work.
Right.
Right. My pastor Joby always says, boy, you don't get up and go to fun, you get up and go to work. Right. And
Joby Martin, who's on the show before, he's a rock star, man.
He's just he's changed my life and how I walk with Christ. But you know, that's how my grandfather was a very matter of fact type guy, and you know, he's a guy that graduated the 8th grade, went from being a roughneck at 14 years old, you know, which is the guy on an oil derrick, you know, drilling wells, running pipe, all the hard life, carrying 100 pounds of concrete on their shoulders, you know, up these derricks and all this stuff, and he went from that kid with no high school education to being the boss of the whole well.
Yeah.
Why? Because he put the work into it. And to answer your question, I was 19, just turned 20, right? And met my buddy Jackie Don. You know, JD's my boy. He was in the Air Force at the time. And I went to Vegas, where he was stationed right outside Vegas. And, you know, we had an awesome birthday. I came back, I was broke. And I was 20 now. And it was that realization, right? That come to Jesus moment. Like, hey, man, you're not a kid anymore. It's time to go to work. It's time to do something besides being an electrician's helper at JMS Electric in Groesbeck, Texas, right? Or, you know, all these little odds and ends jobs. Like, it's time to grow up, be a man. And it just so happened I had a buddy that was at my house, you know, Clayton Loper, and he was in the Army at Fort Hood. Tell me about the stuff that he did. And I'm like, man, you got to get up early every morning, right? You got to do PT. Oh, that sounds hard. And which is so funny thinking about what I've done now, right?
Yeah.
But it put the bug in my ear. I'm like, okay, let me go look at that. So I went to Recruiter, and you know, Recruiter got me. You're right. Yeah. I went in there. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about the Army. And he said, well, you want to shoot missiles? And I'm like, well, hell yeah, who don't?
Yeah. Everybody wants to shoot missiles.
He's like, well, be a Patriot missile guy. You get to press the button, $202 million missile, let's go do it. And so this gives you a glimpse into my mindset. July 5th, broke, thought about being in the military, in the Army. August 16th, I was in basic training.
Wow, yeah. They had a missile billet to fill.
That's right. That's exactly what it was. They're like, hey, we're short on these guys. Next guy comes in, we're going to sell them the dream.
Yeah. And so you go through all your training for that. How long do you spend doing that job?
So believe it or not, I was in basic when the towers fell.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
So September 11, 2001, I was in basic training.
What'd that feel like? What happened? I'm sure they pulled you guys aside and.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We were doing hand-to-hand combat that day, and I thought it was a drill.
Right.
You're in basic. You're there to train to go to war. So we got a bunch of drill sergeants coming up and says, "Men, we're going to war. Stop training. We just got a terrorist attack. You know, blah blah blah. Get back on the truck. We got to go back to base."
You thought it was training?
100%. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And so we go to this big auditorium. They got a TV up there, and they're showing the towers are burning and all this stuff. And I'm still thinking this is a drill. I'm like, man, this is like some Hollywood type, you know, scenario that they have.
This is before AI too.
This is before AI, right? And obviously by about 2:00 in the morning, we're still pulling guard and everything. I'm like, okay, this is real. And that's where the whole world changed, and specifically with my career, because, you know, a lot of kids nowadays, they don't realize the mindset of what it was back in the day. Right, the mindset to join the military, right? The mindset back in the day was, you know, get some college money, you know, serve for a little bit and all that good stuff. Yeah. You know, it wasn't a, you know, staunch, we're going to go fight the good fight, serve type of mindset. And so that obviously switched overnight for me to where, okay, I'm in it. Where I'm here to fight the good fight. And I grew up playing football, playing baseball, like, hauling hay. Like I've always been kind of an in shape kid. I always say, I'm not the biggest, strongest, fastest, and I dang sure ain't the smartest, but you're not outworking me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can just lean forward and keep fighting. And I found that works out pretty good in the Army. Right.
Yeah.
They tell you what to do. All you got to do is do what you're told. Right. And so that led me to, become an honor grad at basic, to, getting whatever I wanted in the regular Army, meaning I got stationed where I wanted, which was at Fort Bliss, and went to the initial invasion of Iraq. Imagine this kid, I was 21 at the time now, and actually, no, I wasn't, because that was, July was in, so the initial invasion was in March.
Yeah.
So I'm still 20. So I just did my basic AIT, learned how to shoot. Then we got deployed, and there's no word in the English vocabulary to clearly articulate the magnitude of what the Department of the Defense is. Mm-hmm. Right. And when I was in 108th Airborne, attached to 1st MEF, by the way, that's who we were covering the Marines that were.
That's for those listening, it's 1st Marine Expeditionary Force.
Right. So the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force that was going to be the first guys across the border, through through Basra to Talil, Al Nasiriyah, all the way up to Baghdad. Generation Kill, if you remember that HBO miniseries, that route.
Rudy Reyes and
those were the guys we were with.
Yeah.
But again, months before then, that stage of that build up, imagine a city like Houston, but every vehicle you pass is a military vehicle.
Yeah.
That's what it was like. In all of Kuwait, you never saw anything that wasn't a 5-ton, that wasn't a tank, that wasn't a Humvee, that wasn't a fueler, it was the most, vast amount of
mass
of vehicles, power, all the things, man. I remember being at all in the night before when we got the mission, the green light. Hey, what was it? March 19th when we went across the border. I called my buddy JD. Mm-hmm. Remember we had the calling cards.
Oh yeah.
This is for sat phones and everything, right? You had your calling card. You went to the calling center.
Yep.
Well, I went there and I'm like, hey man, all I can say is watch the news.
Yep. We're here in our studios in the Mighty Oaks National Training Center, and Jeremy Stolnecker, CEO of Mighty Oaks, was a platoon commander at 1st MEF, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, in that push across the border.
Wow.
So he was it was I imagine that was a pretty surreal time because it was such a conventional war, much different than Afghanistan.
Much different, right? And you're right. It was 100% conventional. And by the way, not just us, right? Because I remember we were 20 kilometers south of the border, and we ran into the Royal Marines. Yeah, and so here we are, a couple Brits. They got liquor. Like, hey man, what is that? Give me a swig, right? And just having to move with them with the Australians. We got to meet with them. Obviously, Army guys, Navy guys, Marines. I never will forget seeing helicopters. In-flight refueling, right? Our hot refueling with rotors are still spinning, and under night vision looks like a chem light. Yeah, is at the end of the rotor.
Static,
because of all the static, and I never will forget sitting on the front of my Humvee. I was having a chicken with salsa MRE, and I hear the sound of a missile. Right, and I look up above me, and it's a Tomahawk. About 300 feet high, a few of them just coming over me, and they're bombing Basra to soften the target before we went up. Right. So just think about what that was like for 20-year-old kid that hadn't even left Texas. Right. Now here I am watching this happen. And then now we're rolling across the border a couple hours later.
Was that a deployment at any kinetic combat for you?
Not really. I mean, indirect fire. We did have direct fire, but it was mortar fire, right? Yeah. It wasn't like blowing indoors like you would be in my next life in the military.
At that time, it was a siege, and then the insurgency came later.
Right. Yeah. And but there were some pretty neat, times I never will forget. Man, we just got across the border, and here we are talking to these villagers. Obviously, they don't speak English, but they're all giving us thumbs up, saying "Go Bush," Bush friend, good, And we're like, well, I guess they're thinking this guy's in charge now,
Yeah.
But there was just some funny stuff like that going through all these villages, and seeing the people glad that Americans are there.
So you come back from that deployment, and is that when you decided, hey, I want to take this a step further, stay in the Army, and go into the Special Forces route?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. That was when I learned, Army has a term called HUA, right? And everybody wants to be HUA and all the HUA-ness and have HUA on their stuff and all that. Well, you realize that sounds good in garrison, but when you're in combat, you find out people's true colors.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, I found out in combat. And so I knew that this wasn't going to be a short war, or I figured it wasn't going to be at the time. And I said, man, if we're going to keep doing this, if I'm going to be in the military, I got to be with the best. And that's whenever I decided to go over and see if I had what it takes over at Fort Bliss or Fort Bragg, and did the selection process and was fortunate to get selected.
What's 18 series did you go?
I was an 18 Echo.
Echo.
Yeah, commo guy.
Yep.
Yeah. You can talk about us, but you can't talk without us. Yeah, it was awesome, man. I go back to, when people ask me, how did I become a Green Beret, or, what's the tip or the trick to doing it? I did everything that they told me to do as hard as I could.
Yeah.
Right. And going through selection was an incredible experience. Not only a gut check physically, right? Because that's what I love about the Army Special Forces, is that not only do we have the capability, but we also have the mindset, right? And what I mean by that is, for sure, can we blow a door in, jump out of an airplane, do target exploitation, like all the cool guy stuff like you see, but also can we go into an embassy and talk to a world leader? Right? Yeah. Can you get these unconventional warfare tactics and put them into motion on the battlefield? Right? Meaning, instead of saying, here's this target packet, go get bad guy. Hey, in this region here, we have a disruption of terrorists. We need you to go meet with local people, get their favor, and change them to our side, then train them to fight for us.
Yeah, the foreign internal defense.
Right.
FID.
Right.
Mission. I was just talking to, we just had a guest on, Terry Wilson, the Green Beret, and we're talking about, I really wanted to, I just communicate to the younger audience who are, young men interested in going to special operations, all the different types of jobs. And to me, that's the one that I like a lot of people don't understand. That's a really appealing thing, to do foreign FID missions.
Right.
And Army SF, or now Marine MARSOC, or the two people that really do FID well. But I think you guys are the kind of original FID guys, and basically a force multiplier on the battlefield.
Well, it's a biblical thing as well, right? Teach a man to fish, he feeds forever.
Yeah.
Right? Rather than give him a fish, he feeds for a day. Right? Instead of sending 100 Americans in to go get that bad guy, why don't we send 15 Green Berets, or how many is in a MARSOC team?
Yeah, I don't know on the MARSOC team, but
I'm sure it's small.
It would be a small,
right?
small group, and they go in.
Send those guys in to train 1,000.
Yeah,
right. Let them fight for themselves.
Yeah, it would definitely be around that. I think they run their. I think they're typically like 24 guys, but for a FID mission, they probably do like half.
Right.
Of that. Yeah.
I remember when MARSOC guys were getting stood up, because we had a couple Marines go through selection. Mm-hmm. Right, because they were trying to see what the selection process was like, and they were some studs.
Yeah, yep. Boy, that original Det 1 program were all Force Recon guys. It was kind of like pipe hitters from Force Recon to go stand up or go to get detached to SOCOM to fulfill the demand of the Marine Corps to support SOCOM. And so that Det 1 was all Force Recon guys, and then it was a success, and then that put a mandate on the Marine Corps to contribute to the Special Operations Command, and they stood instead of giving away Recon, Force Recon, they stood up something new, which is MARSOC, Marine Special Operations Command.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, from my observation, they mirrored it after, of all the Special Operations unit, they mirrored it most closely after SF.
Well, and I think because when a general is doing a battle plan, they think of how many ODAs will it take in this country. right? Because of the significance of what we play in the battle space, right? And I think that's why they were trying to duplicate that into the MARSOC world, because again, that's how we fight battles now, is in the unconventional world.
Yes.
Right. To your point, total different from the initial invasion of Iraq, where it was a conventional rolling tanks over, rolling these mass numbers of people. That's not going to happen again unless obviously things are real bad.
Yeah. But then, you got what you deal with the insurgency, and then you look over a few countries over into Afghanistan, that war, the ODAs really played a really big role into doing the FID missions. So going to third group, I got to ask, what was your language?
French. Yeah. Je ne parle français. Je suis américain. I don't speak French. I'm American.
It's still crazy that they invest so much into Green Berets speaking French.
Well, I think it's because of our significance in Africa.
Right. Okay.
Right. And that's kind of I don't want to say the main language in Africa, but it is
a lot of French colony. I mean, I've been to Senegal, and speak it's French speaking.
Yeah.
Place there, and
Djibouti and places like that.
Yep.
So like we do a lot of J sets over there in Africa, and third group owned it at the time, before we obviously took over Afghanistan, right? Because before, GWAT really kicked off and got hot and heavy. Fifth group was really more of the the Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, that area. But obviously because of the just OPSEC or not OPSEC, op tempo. They had to get some help in third group. So third group went to owning Afghanistan, and they focused on Iraq and Syria.
So you deployed to Afghanistan.
I did.
At third group.
It was
that the deployment?
It was the deployment. Yeah.
For you.
First deployment with my cool guys, and it was everything you thought in the Q course. Mm-hmm. We were very fortunate. I specifically was very fortunate to get tasked to an awesome ODA, right? Scott Ford, Kyle Walton, my team leader and team sergeant, they were just absolute studs, worked us hard, but because of that, we were the best, and we got the best mission, which at the time was to work with the Afghani Commandos.
Which is their special operations.
Correct, yeah. Yep. It was their, we had the first operational Kandak. Right.
Explain that.
So their Kandak is like a battalion, right? So we had the first battalion that was operationally after their graduation from their, Q course.
Yep.
Right. The Commandos had selection kind of just like we did in the Q course and all the stuff. And
if they could do a coordinated jumping jack, they were in.
If they could do a coordinated and not eat the end of their barrel. Yeah. Or batteries. But yeah, so we had the first operation one. So we had the shiny new toy, right? And everybody wanted to see him in action. And because of that, rightfully so,
of course,
they were studs. I always joke about, I never will forget calling roll for the first time. We had a guy named Muhammad Ali, that was his real name, but they for Afghanis, they were studs. And so, yeah, we had a lot of air assets that a typical ODA wouldn't normally get. They're more mounted with vehicles or, something like that. And so we did a lot of missions that, we wouldn't normally get. And it was a great time.
It was, from my observation of the Commandos, the main differentiator was there was more buy-in. There was a sense of patriotism, where a lot of times in Afghanistan they're been to war so long. Sometimes, sadly, I hate saying this, but because it's not a good look on them, but they're opportunists, right? They're whoever is the winning team, that's who they're gonna be with. Whoever's writing the check, that's who they're gonna be with. But loyalty, there could be a loyalty shift,
right,
on a different chain. But the Commandos seem to be patriots and have some buy-in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A&A, I mean, I don't think, for those that are listening that never went over there, it wasn't out of the norm to have somebody be AWOL because he joined the Taliban.
Yeah. And A&A, Afghan National Army.
Right.
And then you had many times, I know it's happened a lot for you guys in ODAs, is you'd have a interpreter turning, fire on you guys or set you guys up. And
two of my very dear friends, they were on an insider attack. Quite literally just got back from a mission. This was
seventh group.
Yeah.
I've been familiar with that. I was just talking to a guy yesterday, Marty.
Marty's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah, that was terrible.
It was terrible. Yeah. Marty he was in Operation Overland with me.
Yeah.
And hearing his story of what happened, right? And so you're
small
right.
world, yeah, small world. Yeah, that was. I mean, and that they not only did he attack them, but it was a coordinated ambush. And
Yeah, they have text messages of the guy saying, "Do it now."
yeah, I mean, and that happened. And our AFO operation I was on, we had one of our guys OGA trained and flipped on us, and we had 2 Americans, 10 Afghans killed, and it resulted in pretty bad for me as well. And so I mean, but you got the guys at the Commandos there.
Yeah, I think
a little more buy-in.
I think we were fortunate during that time. So this is 2007 and 2008, right? I do want to say the Terps that we had were studs.
Yeah.
Right. We had, CK, which unfortunately died in combat with us on Shok Valley when I lost my leg. Booyah, Blade, they were awesome.
Oh, those guys are awesome.
Yeah.
I got a crazy story I won't tell you on here about Booyah.
Booyah's my man. I helped get him out of Afghanistan. So whenever the pullout happened,
yeah,
we got, because of my team leader's promotion long story short, we helped him get out.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
I didn't know
he's
know
in
those
Charlotte
guys.
right now.
Yeah, I know.
That's my dude.
Yeah. That's really
I got
cool.
a picture of us at the White House getting when Matt Williams got the Medal of Honor.
That's really cool. Yeah, because those guys were in. I mean, they were there with the Medal of Honor. I don't know what you call it.
Ron Shore.
Yeah, they were there for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were there. I was there for that. I mean, that was the Battle of Shok Valley when I got shot.
I did not know that.
Booyah was my guy whenever I got shot. He was my Terp.
We gotta take a picture and send it to him after this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then Aziz is in the next room over, my interpreter, and he started before he went to JSOC. He started at third group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he at JBAD?
I don't know where he started at third group. That was before me.
Okay.
So he started at third group and went to the embassy on the anti-terrorism task force, and then he got picked up by JSOC on a task force, and then went to a special program that I was in. So
that's awesome.
So he spent like 16 years there. But yeah, Blade and Booyah
I mean, I never will forget going in the Terp hut, right? And they'd have friends playing, with Ross and Rachel on TV, and I'm like, man, there's better TV in America than Friends.
I got our guys turned on to the Chappelle Show. so yeah,
that's awesome.
The Chappelle Show was our thing. Yeah, well, that's also, man. If you want to get into it, let's talk about that battle.
Absolutely.
That's insane battle. Obviously, one you'll never forget.
Yeah, April 6, 2008 was a day that, I'd never tried harder I'd ever tried in my life. It was a day that, we, as an ODA, had never been tested like that before. My team sergeant been in the military for, I think, 16 years at the time, never been in anything like that, right? It was tough, and kind of give you the backstory of what it is, right? So we were going to, Haji Ghafoor was the guy's name, and he was the leader of the HIG. When the HIG turned into ISIS, for those that just don't realize, like that's the type of guys that we were going after. And what he would do is he would go into gem mines, right? Like rubies, star sapphires, right? The precious stones that Afghanistan's known to export. Well, he'd go into that mine and take it over and fund the HIG with it, right? And so he was a, tier 1 type target that, because of his location, 10,000 feet above sea level in this mountain pass, which was in the Nuristan province. For those that don't know where that is, if you remember Trump's first presidency when he dropped the Moab.
Yes.
The mother, right? That was in the Nuristan province.
2018.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so, when we were building our target packet, it was very hard to get intel. Obviously, as you know, you don't just ride your goat up to 10,000 feet up to this village and say, hey, where's the bad guys, right? And so a lot of it heavily had to rely on predator feed and whatever human intelligence that we could get from people coming out. And we got the window that he was going to be there. Missed it twice. So this was our third time trying to get him, right? So we get spun up, hey, he's there. As soon as we get to the airfield, we got intel he's gone, right? Or we had obviously, predator feed that said he's no longer there. And yeah, so we wake up that morning, it's 4:00 in the morning. I wake up, go outside, and it's raining. And if you know anything about rotary aircraft, right, they don't like to fly in the rain.
Yeah. And
so immediately I was like, well, we're going to get stood down for a third time. And this is, thank goodness this was toward the end of the deployment, right? So we had a lot of reps with our NDIG. We had a lot of reps as an ODA specifically, right? We done, missions, everything from, north of Bagram to the Helmand province, obviously outside of Kabul, Asadabad. We went to Abad. We were stationed at a JBAD at the time. So we really had done some, a lot of work during this deployment to get trained up for this. And so, yeah, we thought, we're probably not going to go this day, but we got kitted up and go out to the airfield and we're still waiting for that, first of all, for the ceiling to, part so we can get the aircraft in and out safely. And I always tell the story about what it was like just being on that aircraft, just waiting. Yeah. I'm sure right? Rotors are spinning. You're just sitting there. You got your real, the headset on, listening to the ODA commander, their battlefield commander, listening to the pilot, the guys at the JTOC, listening to the guys. And I mean, we were there for probably an hour, right? So now the sun's about to come up. As you're supposed to land, actually, we were supposed to land at the top of the village and work our way down. Mm-hmm. But I think what really had happened about 3 weeks prior to that, we were doing fast roping training with the Commandos, and a knucklehead didn't grab the rope, and so he fell 30 feet and broke his back. Right, and so the head shed was gun shy about us fast roping off the top, and so the mission now was land in the wadi and walk up a mountain, which it doesn't take a doctorate level of tactics to know that that's a dumb idea. Right? In the daylight. Yeah. Whatever happened to special operations, we own the night, right? Right. And but anyway, the old term voluntold, because I do want the listeners to know, like, we told our command twice. When I say we, I go back to, I had some great leadership, my team sergeant and team leader, like, that's stupid, we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. They'd come back, all right, well, you need to do this. That's stupid, we're not doing that. And finally I said, check it out, you're going. Yeah. Because I never will forget, Scott and Kyle coming in the team room, say, hey guys, check it out. This sucks, but we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And we all nodded north and south and made the commitment, right? And so anyway, we get the command, let's go, and we lift off the ground and we start going toward the objective, and that was a 30-minute ride, right? Getting phase line alpha check, phase line bravo check, and all the way to the objective. And then I never will forget. So again, we were going to land in the wadi and climb the mountain, and we're coming up. You get to 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, and all that, and we go to run out the backside of the helicopter, but it's not on the ground, right? Because of the boulders and the rocky terrain underneath us. Can't land. And we don't train for that, do we? So we're jumping 10, 15 feet outside of that helicopter with 60 pounds of kit. Man, I thought we were going to lose 25% of our element just off of a sprained knee, twisted ankle. And because as you probably know, dealing with the NDIG, if they were issued a piece of ammunition, they would carry it on every mission. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I never will forget Commandos looking like, Rambo, or Commando had, links of rounds.
Well, they all seen Rambo and in Afghanistan, Rambo, and they're like, the biggest fans. They're the biggest fans.
They're like, all right, knucklehead. First of all, that's not how you need to carry it, right? Yeah. But so yeah, we thought we were going to lose them because all the stuff that they were carrying, and but we didn't, and got our accountability of all our guys. So I had Booyah with me. I was Assault Team 1 leader.
Was Zia? Was Zia on this?
Z was our Turput. Okay, he was the house guy.
Okay.
Yep. Charlie Sheen was our welder back in. Yeah. He was awesome. Yeah. Z was our Turpa, our house Terp. Okay. He's always stayed. Every now and then he would go with us. Okay. He wasn't with us that day. At least I don't think he was. But yeah. Anyway, so we go to the objective, man, and so it was probably, from the base of the mountain, 500 feet up, maybe more. And maybe 1,000. I don't remember off the top of my head the actual target house, right? So we're hitting houses about 350 feet up, and so we're just climbing goat trails, going back and forth, doing these switchbacks, and as in Afghanistan they farm on the side of these mountains, so they would flatten off
the terraces.
Yeah, and so we were climbing up to one terrace to the next, Like literally, buddy using your knee to, get catapulted up, and then him pulling you up. And I mean, it was horrible, and not horrible. It was tough. And so, yeah, man, I never will forget. Again, SALT Team 1 leader, me, Dave Sanders was my junior guy. He met us during the deployment, had Booyah with me as a chirp, and we had 8 commandos. And it was our job to be the first guys into a house, right? Lock in a house, or get in a house, lock it down, clear it. That way, no matter what, we can come, into that house and have some type of safety, security, C2 element, command, or casualty collection point, something like that. And man, I was about 40 yards, from that first house, and we just got opened up on, right? And you just think about what it would look like at the time. So we're coming up that mountain face. Well, that mountain face kind of curves back. So we got 270 degrees of mountain staring at us, and the entire mountain opened up. And we, I never will forget the first, we've been talking for a while now, and within the first 10 minutes of that round getting shot, or CK, he got shot right in the face, died on impact, right? Thinking he was with the command and control element behind me. So again, we're going up these, zigzags. So I'm up closest to the village. The people that were down below us was were the C2 element. Then below them was the SALT Team 2, right? But we're all strung out like, ants, right? Trying to get up there. And yeah, CK got shot right in the face. He died. He dropped. Dylan Bear, he was the RTO, 18 Echo. He was the junior. He was my junior. He was actually my senior when I got to the team. Things happened during the deployment, and we swapped to have me be the senior, and so he was the RTO, and he got shot in the hip. And initial assessment to him was 20 minutes to live. As you know,
essentially he's combat ineffective.
Well, not only that, but you do the backwards math right out the gate.
Yeah.
How long's he got to die? We're not getting off the mountain in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? We're not getting him off the mountain in 20 minutes. We're not getting a medevac bird there. Dylan's dead. Right? And within another 5 minutes, Luis Morales, he got shot not once but twice in the leg. Right? So think about that. You got a guy, severely injured. Another guy's dying. I mean, this was the 15 minutes in the, would Mike Tyson say everybody's got a plan to get punched in the face?
Yeah. I
mean, that's what it was for us. And seeing, hearing Luis, getting shot and saying, "John, come get me, brother." Like I knew that he was hurt bad, and at that point we did the best thing that we knew to do at the time, was just go to work.
How many guys, how many Green Berets, how many commandos do you guys have in your element?
So there was our ODA, which was 15, and about 60 commandos. Yeah. And on the mountain.
So it was 75 of you guys versus
200 to 250.
Yeah.
Right. And it was every bit of that.
With the elevated fighting position,
elevated fighting position, outgunned, outmanned, and that was the thing with us.
Dug in,
willing to fight. Like that, the battle damage assessment, that was one of the realizations of just how dug in and how willing to fight these guys were, right? Yeah. And because I go back to the HIG is what turned into ISIS, and that that really there's no difference between ISIS and Taliban, other than these guys are willing to fight, till the death, and so so at that point we just started lobbing 203 rounds into buildings above us and calling in close air support. Because it was so.
Did you guys have CAS on call?
We did. We had CAS on call, both fixed, and rotary wing, right?
Yeah. So it's close air support for those.
Yeah, we had close air support, but it was so close to us. I mean, because again, if where we're sitting right now is where I was, the roof is where they were.
Yeah.
Right. Think about how close that is. And so trying to figure out, from a fixed wing, even A-10, it doesn't fly fast, but it flies fast enough to make that a tough call. Right. So what we would do is just lob a 203 round into, the side of the house and say, "Hey, you see that smoke? Confirm, make it more smoke."
Yeah.
Right. And that's what we would do. But I never will forget about an hour into this, I finally radioed to Scott. I'm like, hey, we can't just sit here. What are we doing? Are we moving up or are we coming down? Right. And he's like, there's no way we're moving up. I'm like, roger that. We're coming to you. Right. And so we came back down to them and pretty much initiated Operation Human Shield. Right. Because imagine, when I tell the story, I always make sure that people understand the intimacy that we were fighting together. Right. It wasn't this parking lot, to your point earlier about this conventional fighting force where, we're 25 meters away from each other. I mean, it's shoulder to shoulder, right? You're on goat paths, right? Goat trails coming up this mountain. And now we're getting shot on these goat trails and we're bunching up trying to help each other. So this was, literal shoulder to shoulder with your guys. And so when I say we came back and initiated Operation Human Shield, which was us essentially just being in front of Ron, the only medic on the side of that mountain, keeping Dylan and Luis alive. Right.
So you just had 118 Delta, and
that was the only medic, 18 Delta. Yeah.
were you guys able to find good cover?
No cover, no concealment.
Yeah.
Just us. We had our Air Force combat controller with us, Zach Reiner, that was managing all of this aircraft at the time, and our team leader, who was really there. So if you think about it, at this one location where everyone was getting shot, it was obviously Dylan Luis, it was Ron, it was Kyle, the team leader, it was the Zach Reiner, the combat controller, me and Dave. So right there, that's what, 5, 6, 7. And then you had Mike Carter, who was the combat cameraman, right? That makes 8 guys. And then, Booyah and the other commandos, we said, get off the side because there's just wasn't enough terrain. So right there's just 8 of us that was on there trying to keep Dylan Luis alive. And we did it for, about an hour. And so now we're 3 hours into this fight, maybe 2.5. And that's when I got shot in my right leg. I never will forget trying to move to a different vantage point. And, because I saw a guy moving and I was trying to get a good shot on him. And I felt the most pain I ever felt in my life. And I fell forward and I rolled over to assess it. And my leg, it was just hanging at a 45-degree angle, only by an inch of flesh.
We're more likely 7.62.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did it hit you?
In right below my right knee, right?
Okay.
So about 3 or 4 inches below my right knee. And when it, again, we thought maybe it'd be a ricochet, right? Because when that bullet ricochets, it's tumbling. And, because it's doing that, it has a little bit more of an impact as it goes through rather than just zipping through the leg.
Yeah.
Or I'm just lucky. And that's what it is. One bullet took the leg, man. And I tell everybody when I give this story, like, I didn't do this heroic thing, right? I didn't do this John Wayne, born on the 4th of July, told my sergeant I didn't have time to bleed.
Well, you had been in a gunfight for 3 hours. That's pretty that's pretty heroic.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
But I just want to humanize it to let people know, man, I was terrified.
Of course.
I screamed out to God, man. I
fighting for your life.
I thought, do I play dead? I thought, am I going to die? Like all the human things. And then, once all of that went through, I just went back to work. Right. And for me, going back to work was pretty simple, right? Stop the bleeding.
Yeah, because your 18 Delta's busy.
He's got a little, he's a little busy at the moment, right? And And I never will forget looking at my leg and just, I mean, it looked like something from the movies. You know, jokingly, I was like, "Oh, Spielberg got it right," you know, because it looks just like when the head gets chopped off and you see, that spurt of blood. That's what my leg was doing. And so I never, I called Dave Sanders again, first appointment with us, just like me. We'd never seen this before, and I looked at him. I was like, "Dave, I need your help." Think about him and his mindset of what it was like for him to come in and see all of this. Because obviously, putting my tourniquet on, trying to lift my leg up and, wrap it around. I mean, that was something I just, I couldn't do without help at the time. And so he helped put it up there, ride high or die, right? And which means put the tourniquet as high up on your leg as possible. You don't put it at the injury, right? You put it up high. And that's what we did. We just put it up here and we just kept turning and kept turning and kept turning. And because of the severity of the injury, I could see that blood just, stop going out little by little to where then I never saw it come out. And then, that's how I stopped the bleeding. But then I just went to work.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's when people say, what happened? I'm like, nothing happened or what went wrong. War, that's what happened. And you just,
you're in a gunfight and you got shot.
You do the math.
Yeah.
Right? Door's blocked. What do? Go to the window. Window's blocked. Go to the other side. Like just same thing with here, man. All right. I got shot. Stopped the bleeding. Bleeding stopped. Now what? Go back to the fight. Right? And that's just what I did. Was the best that I can was to keep fighting and keeping guys' heads down. And I always talk about every bit of 15 minutes had gone by at the time. And it dawned on me, again, Chad, like this was the most excruciating pain. This was something that I didn't go into shock.
The pain didn't fade.
The pain did not fade.
Yeah.
If anything, the tourniquet made it worse.
Yeah.
Right. And
I've heard that. Did you take anything?
Well, that's where I'm telling you, right? So it dawned on me I had my morphine injected.
Ah, okay.
Right. And the morphine, you stick it in, needle comes out and gives you some Dr. Feelgood. And I always joke by saying I live by a creed that I'm dumb, but I know I'm dumb. So that almost makes me smart, right? I know I'm dumb enough to mess this up, right? So I asked Ron, I'm like, "Hey, man, what side down?" And he's like, "Purple." I'm like, "Cool, got it." And I went just like this in my leg, but the needle went in my thumb. I'll never remember or forget the amount of rage and pain that I felt, right, with that going in there. And I threw the morphine at Ron. I'm like, "You had one job, Ron, one job. You messed it up." So I'm cussing him and everybody's laughing. Like we're laughing right now.
Yeah.
The whole ODA was laughing on the side of the mountain because my thumb's all jacked up. I'm cussing my medic and so it was just awesome. The last thing I'll talk about that was, it had to have been 30 minutes post.
But did the morphine inject in your thumb?
Man, the thumb felt great.
It felt great. Yeah.
Leg was a little shaky, but but yeah, it worked. But it dawned on me again that I, like at this point, the only guy keeping me alive is me.
Yeah.
Right. And I know I'm not qualified for that. Right. Because I put the tourniquet on, and so I was like, "Hey, Ron, come check me out, man. The ABCs, all that medic stuff. Make sure I did it right and all that." And to this day, I remember the look of his head, coming over Dylan, right? Because he's working on his hip. Mm-hmm. So he's got his head down and doing what he's supposed to do, keep the bleeding stopped and all that stuff. And he hears me yelling at him. He raises up his head, kind of pokes it up like that at me, and then he gives me a thumbs up. He says, "You're good." I'm like, "I'm not good, Ron. I know me good. This is not me good." And once again, we're laughing. I told him I'm going to beat him with my leg when I see him, I'm like, but obviously he knew what he was doing, right? Because if I had enough wherewithal and strength to cuss him, he knew I'm not dying, as to where he was doing a real priorities. But it didn't help me at all, Chad. Like I wanted to feel special at the time, and dadgummit.
Yeah. It's like when we get a cold, right?
Exactly.
Want to be pampered.
So, after he tells me I'm not special and goes back to work, I just go back to the job, right? I go back to work as well, and we keep fighting. And that's when my team sergeant gets shot, right? And that was probably mentally more debilitating to me than my leg, right? Because before then, I knew Scott could get us out of there. Scott's the team sergeant, right? Scott's the guy that's been in the Army all this time, as you know, right? I get it. Officers are in charge. I'm looking for that NCO to get me out of there.
He's your source of confidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And I, when I'm on stage and I talk about it, I jokingly say that, in my mind, Scott Ford is so awesome that Chuck Norris wore Scott Ford underwear. Right. Like he was that big a guy to me. Right. And for y'all listening, if you don't know who Chuck Norris is, he was a theologian back in the 90s. Go look that up. But start with Walker, Texas Ranger. But I saw Scott get shot closer from me to you. Right. Imagine me, I'm sitting up, right. I'm on my butt and I see my team sergeant get shot in his breastplate, right. Body armor right in front of him. And he dropped to his knee. And that's whenever I was like, okay, this is getting serious, right. We're probably not going to make it out of here. But fortunately, Scott is as awesome as I say he was. He got up and he kept firing, right. He did a little check like, okay, body armor did what it's supposed to. And got back up. He's left-handed, right? So he's got that buttstock in his left shoulder, and he's going to work, man. And I was thinking, wow, man, that's my guy. And as soon as I thought that, within a minute after that, I see that left shoulder just fillet off the backside because he got shot in his shoulder. And that's when he really went down. And that's when I really thought, okay, we're going to die today, right? I'm shot. Luis is shot, Dylan's shot, now Scott's shot. We're on the side of this mountain. Again, 270 degrees of people, of bad guys shooting at us. This is 4 hours into a fight. If we ain't getting out of here now, we dang sure not. If we couldn't get them two out, now we can't get me out. What are we going to do? And
obviously, for those listening, this is what we call a hot LZ. Helicopter's not going to come land there.
Exactly.
There's not an aircraft that's going to land there. You got to move.
You got to move, right? And well, in us, they obviously couldn't even get on the mountain, right? We got to get off the mountain before we can get into that hot LZ, and which we can get to in a little bit. But I didn't realize until recently, by the way. So we, myself, Dave, and Matt Williams were interviewed on a Paramount Plus show that's going to air this year, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this was the first time Matt and I and Dave had ever really talked about it, and getting his perspective, Matt's perspective. Obviously, Dave was right there with me, but to get Matt's perspective, because again, thinking about we're going up and down these terraces, and Matt says, John, I never will forget like hearing you above that terrace, and knowing if I go up there, we're both going to die. Right. So think about that decision that he has to make. Potentially let his brother die to try to get him out at a different time.
Yeah.
Right. Because obviously I didn't have that wherewithal as we're on this mountain right there with Scott getting shot. And that was a perspective that I never knew, because Matt was going up and down this mountain the whole time trying to help out with us. And fortunately, after Scott was shot, the powers that be above us, back at the TOC, which is a Tactical Operations Center, right back in Jalalabad, or even at Bagram, where the commander of the JSOC, of the CJSOTF was, Command Joint Task Force, was, with all of us injured, that's when they took the gloves off and pretty much diverted every air asset in theater to our location. And that's when they really started dropping ordnance. Right. Yeah. Before it was, close air support, as Zach called it in, but now they're really dropping JDAMs on top of this. Right. And which is good. Right. What's not good is when you drop a 2,000-pound bomb 100 feet above a bunch of guys, now you've got rocks and boulders falling down the mountain.
On top of you guys.
On top of you. Like Dylan actually got his intestines ruptured from a rock hitting. Right. So think about, that's how we got off. We drop a bomb. And I guess for the listeners, if that doesn't ring a bell, or is that's not significant to you, it's huge.
Yeah.
Right. Danger close for a 2,000-pound JDAM is over 1,000 meters. Right. So that's over 10 football fields stacked end to end. And they were dropping them 100 yards on top of our heads. Yeah. Right. So think about the explosion that we witnessed that close. And so getting off the mountain, that's what we would do. We would drop a bomb, and then essentially fall off the backside of a cliff, right? Because the goat trail climbing up those terraces, that was the easy way up, right? But obviously, we can't go that way because Matt told me another thing when we were getting interviewed that Seth, another guy, so Matt and Seth made it 10. So those were the 10 that were on the mountain, 8 of us and those 2. Seth was like, Matt, we got to go right there. And Matt's like, every single person that went that way has been shot. You want to go there? Yeah. I mean, think about, that statement that you have to make and call that you have to make at the time. And so what we would do, we would just drop a bomb, fall off the backside of the cliff 10, 15, 20 feet.
You have your leg hanging off.
I forgot to tell this point. At one point, I literally grabbed my leg, I folded up in my crotch, and I held it between my thighs. Like I literally carried my leg down the mountain because it was so severely injured, right? And I remember thinking, it's the hardest thing I've ever done because I've lost so much blood. This is 3 hours after, so now we're 6 hours into 6 hours into the firefight, 3 hours into me after me being shot. Chad, it was the hardest thing that I could do, just scoot my butt to that edge, right? And I'm a pretty in shape guy, right? Humbly speaking, and I tell everybody, that was one of the feelings of, I know what it feels like to die, right? I know, and it's not scary, by the way, right? The feeling of death is comforting. The feeling of death is a way out, right? The feeling of death is closure, something that when you are living in that much pain, it's not a scary thing. I always think about the conversation that I had with God. I said, God, this is all I got. Right. I can't do this by myself. And it wasn't a dramatic, like you would see in the movies with me looking up and arms stretched out or anything like this. But it was a absolute literal conversation in my head as I'm trying to, get to that next point. God, I got nothing left. If I make it out of here is because you deem possible. Right. And literally thinking of my kids being raised by another man, right? Thinking my wife being with another man, thinking of what it would be like with me not in their lives, and just thinking, this pain will go away if you just go to sleep, right? That this pain will go away if you just lay back and just go to bed. That's the best way. Just go to bed, man. Put your head back there, do the old rucksack flop that we all know well, and just close your eyes, man. Let it just happen. And, when I had that conversation with God, I was like, I'm giving this all that I have. That way I know if I make it out of here, it's because of you. It's not because of me. And that's what I did. I just kept fighting. I kept going as hard as I could. And we fell at the base of the mountain. And finally, at that point, we called in, the first Medevac bird. And think about it, what it was like, that Medevac bird, coming into this location. Well, first of all, we had to get to a clear LZ because at the base of the mountain, they can't, land that close.
Right.
So we actually got drugged through a river, which I thought I was going to die of hypothermia, right? Because at 10,000 feet above sea level, early April, if you ever been in the mountains,
yes,
it's snow, baby.
It's very cold there.
Very cold there. And yeah, it was, which I think helped me stay alive, right? Because it keeps your battery, charged.
Who was dragging you?
At that point, there was a couple guys that was dragging me, like 3 or 4. Since we're at the base of the mountain, we had all the guys. So either Seth, Matt, Ryan, my junior, I love Callie, or any of the guys that was with me. The team was, and they drugged me through that water to the LZ. And looking up at, you see that red cross at the bottom of that helicopter, and it's coming down. Scott's got his arm bandaged up, his right hand's reached out, looked upward, trying to grab the bottom of that of that helicopter to get it down there. Well, the plane or the helicopter takes off. We actually have audio that I can play for you, where it's the pilot saying, "I'm hit, I'm going south." Like the pilot literally was shot.
The helicopter or the pilot?
Both.
Both. Okay. So
right? They were getting shot by, again, 270 degrees by.
Yeah.
But so that helicopter flies away, and so now here we are getting shot at again in the middle of this wadi. So I get drugged back through that water, got another bath, the OG cold plunge, right? Go through there and
Wake you up.
and go to the base of the mountain, and the next helicopter to get us out. I mean, they land at the base of the mountain. So if you can imagine all the chaos that is from the rotors next to the mountain and all the rotor wash and rounds impacting the helicopter, and they quite literally guys threw each other's off, threw us on, and when we started lifting up, I was like, thank God we're finally getting out of there, and as soon as I thought that, I mean, we're probably 4 or 5 minutes into this helicopter ride, and I hear beep 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 beep, like we had to do a crash landing. That aircraft took so much damage throwing us onto there from the bad guys that couldn't even make it the short flight to a combat hospital. So I was like, come on, baby Jesus, right? Gunshot, hypothermia, now a
Helicopter crash, yeah.
Come on now. And anyway, it was a safe landing. We got cross-loaded to the working aircraft, and that's how we got off the mountain.
Man, credit to some amazing pilots, the courage to go in there for you guys. You ever get to meet any of them?
No, I haven't. That's something that I've wished that I could.
Yeah,
maybe we can set that up one day.
That'd be a pretty cool thing. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the you were awarded the Silver Star,
right?
For your actions, which those who don't know what a Silver Star is, would be the third highest valor award,
right,
in the military. And tell us a little bit about that citation.
Yeah, that was so in true Green Beret fashion, I'll make it about the team.
Yeah. And
not about me, right? But so that day, that ODA 3336, we went up against 200 to 250 insurgents, right? After 6.5 hours, there were 70 danger close airstrikes.
70
danger close. To include the 2,000 pounders, right? Think about that. There were 10 Silver Stars that are awarded. 10 of us got the Silver Star. 8 Purple Hearts. So 8 out of 10 of us got shot that day. The Air Force Cross was awarded, right? And
to the combat controller.
To the combat controller, Zach Reiner got the Air Force Cross, which I think was the first one for that day. But 0 Americans killed.
0 Americans killed. Was there Medal of Honor in that one?
So after the fact, and I don't know the timeline, years later, 2 Silver Stars were upgraded to the Medals of Honor. Yeah. So Ron Shure was the first one, the only medic on that mountain, keeping 8 people got shot, and he was one of them, by the way.
Yeah.
His helmet literally got shot. After this, I'll show you. I've got a little back brief, a little 13-minute video that's got imagery of all the kit that was shot, from a breastplate to sidearms to helmets to radios to all kinds of stuff. But he got awarded the Medal of Honor, which he had at that time had got out of the military and was part of the Secret Service, and unfortunately was dying of cancer, and unfortunately has died of cancer since then. So rest his soul, Ron, for doing that. And then Matt Williams was the most recent upgrade to the Medal of Honor. Was that? Yeah. So now there's 8 Silver Stars, the Air Force Cross, and 2 Medals of Honor for that one battle, which made us the most decorated Special Forces team in history, especially in the Battle of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'd heard a reference to that it was the most decorated battle in Green Beret history. Yeah, incredible courage, you guys. What was the battle damage assessment? Was there ever one done, or kind of a guesstimation of how many Taliban the 10 Green Berets?
Yeah, they definitely said it was well over 150. Right, possible kill capture of the guy, and honestly, I don't even know if we got the guy later or not.
Yeah.
But like Major Payne said, if he's still in there, he ain't happy.
He ain't happy. He ain't happy. So yeah, no Americans killed.
But no Americans killed. CK gave everything that he had that day.
Moral of the story for the Taliban and any bad guys out there: don't mess with the ODA team of Green Berets.
Think about that, right? Like, and I mean that from the most humble perspective. But as a leader of a unit, think about that, right? 250 are going to go up against one ODA. And granted, we had a lot of air support, right? So that's
they're fortified, high ground. They had an element of surprise on you guys,
right?
I mean, you guys didn't have it
from minute one,
yeah,
right. It wasn't like they gained it after a few hours. You know, the whole time. I mean, it was a pickle that we got in.
Well, incredible. So
yeah, and I tell sorry but I always you know, that's not the end of the story, right?
Right.
You know, I also tell everybody you know, war is a young man's game, right? You can join the military at 17 with a parent's permission, go to your little medic class for a couple months. And, you know, obviously when GWAT was hot and heavy, you could be downrange a year after joining, right? And so when we got wheeled into this combat hospital, think of what those kids looked like, right? Their eyes were the size of grapefruit.
Yeah.
You know, wheeling all these guys in and because I remember that young kid looking at me and obviously, you know, my leg, I'm sitting there, you know, got my
holding your leg,
holding my leg at my crotch, right? My wife loves when I said crotch because I never will forget the first interview I did on the NBC Nightly News. Guy came to Fort Bragg and was interviewing us and everything, and I said, "Well, sir, I put my boot in my crotch," and my wife's like, "Really, that crotch? You said that national TV?" I'm like, "Well, I know what else is there, and I can't say that."
Yeah,
right. You know, a couple months went by, and they actually read that battle on the congressional floor, and sent us this beautiful gold plating. Looks very regal on this, you know, in this day in Congress. And talk about the Battle of Shok Valley, and the only quote they gave me was, "I put my boot in my crotch." So you know, watch what you say, kids.
I don't want to move on without this because we're, you know, grateful that no Americans were killed, but some of your commandos, Afghans, were killed. You talked about it first. It's the one guy he got shot and died right away. How many Afghans did you guys lose?
2 commandos died.
2 commandos died.
Yep.
Yeah.
They died. You know, some got shot on blocking positions. Well, one guy, he was a stud. Carl Wurzbach, our team, Charlie, was on a blocking position with him. This guy was just sitting there, you know, laying it down, and goes like, "Hey, man, you're shot." Like, you just continue to fight, right? But yeah, we lost 2 commandos in CK, and CK was a guy. I mean,
and a couple of them were wounded for sure. Like,
yeah. I think 8 were wounded.
Yeah. Did any awards for those guys?
You know, shame on me for not knowing that answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
has to have.
Yeah, and you know, I know. Like I said, I know 3 of those guys, and it's a significant moment in their life as well, and they were very proud to be a part of that with you guys.
I never will forget me and Booyah having to walk over CK's body, and Booyah's face, seeing him dead. And I just remember telling Booyah, "Hey, it ain't over, man.
Yep.
We can do this later. Right now, we got to go to work." Right? And it was a tough time. Because CK was awesome, man. He was the guy that his whole family got murdered by the Taliban. Right? Yeah. And this is what he was meant to be, was a kid, couldn't have been more than 20, trying to liberate his country.
Yeah, a lot of people miss that. These guys fought, you know, tooth and nail. One of the things that during the Afghan withdrawal that just irked me the most was when, you know, President Biden got on the news and said, if they won't fight for their country, then why should we fight for them? I'm like, 60,000 of them gave up their lives fighting over the last 20 years, fighting for their country.
Absolutely,
doing things like you know, what they did on that day with you, and
heroic things.
Yeah.
Heroic things.
Fighting to liberate their country, and What a slap in the face. And I have before publicly apologized on behalf of America to those guys. Like,
same here, man.
Yeah.
Same here. And that's why whenever, you know, the Afghan pullout happened, you know, our team actually came back and we're helping getting guys out. And, you know, unfortunately that wasn't very popular politically.
No,
Right?
no,
You're letting sleeper cells in or this. And I'm like, I don't care.
yeah,
I know what my word is worth more than a political talking point.
yeah, and that's what we have a State Department for. And and those efforts, the NGO efforts to bring people back, had to be done through approval through State Department, knowing who they were. It was the only people that actually brought people here that didn't know who they were the administration who loaded people in those planes and flew them not to a lily pad but straight to the United States and opened the door. And so, if anybody came across that shouldn't have, it was on the Biden administration.
Well, and 100% right. And during that, just to see as you probably know well more intimately than I did, because I was just involved with the people that we knew personally that helped our ODA get them out. And, I was helping with the getting on the list, right? So they got to get on the list, and you're dealing with the people that are on the battlefield at the safe house, waiting for those to get on the list. When they do get on the list, confirmation are there, now getting them from the safe house through Abbey Gate, through all that stuff, and on the manifest and all that stuff, right? And just being a part of that process, in real time, that was something special.
Yeah, it was. And I was just talking about yesterday that how just kind of reminiscing on how many people were involved to come together and make that happen.
Right.
It was a great effort on a lot of people. It was also more so a God orchestrated miracle.
Amen.
It was humanly impossible to pull off what actually happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to get those folks out. The aftermath. I mean, now you're back. You're safe. But you have to heal. You have to recover.
100%, man. I always say that everybody asks me about April 6th. Nobody asked me about April 7th.
Yeah.
Right? Because April 7th is when I wake up in that hospital bed, terrified to look down. And I was, Chad, I didn't want to know that answer. Right? Think about this 26-year-old Green Beret. Right before then, could do anything I set my mind to, man. And because like I said earlier, you're not going to outwork me. And I knew my effort was going to get me there. And shoot, I just got to the team. Again, John Wayne, born on the 4th, Green Beret, come on, let's go. And now I'm looking, I can feel my leg. Even right now, sitting in this chair, I feel my right foot tingling. And I felt that tingling, because I had the joke like, Ron Burgundy, with my high income and advancement in modern science, there's no reason to think they couldn't have saved my leg, but I looked down and I saw they only had one foot sticking up, right? And man, I cried, right? I did all the stuff.
Your life changes.
Life changes.
Yeah.
I always say that's when I learned the meaning of the word can't, right? I can't walk. Not without a prosthetic, man. I'm a disabled man, right? And that inevitability of it doesn't matter how much effort I give, I'm going to have to deal with that disability. And that was the biggest, injury, right? The leg's going to heal. I'll get a foot, I'll walk, whatever. But it was that mental injury of I'm a disabled man. What do I need to do now? How do I overcome that? Something that will never, get better. And I was mad at God. Why me? Who had to why me's, right? And terrified of what to do. Again, not only just am I going to stay on a team, not only am I going to be able to stay in the Army, but man, I got a wife and kids to pay for, right? I got to support them. How am I going to be the man of the house? And it was a come to Jesus moment. And what I did? I just went to work. I didn't, I think one thing God has blessed me with is the ability to block out noise. Right. And not just worry about the what ifs, the whys and all this stuff, and just go to work, man. And that's what I did. I went to work. I said, okay, I'm going to beat this. The arrogance at the time, right? I'm going to beat this. I can beat this leg. Shoot, I'm JW here, right? And I remember the first step that I ever took, right? So I'm in those parallel bars in the hospital. The prosthetist just gave me my first leg. And I take that step and I realize I didn't have that foot go down like my ankle normally articulates. And it just slammed downward like this very archaic, caveman type step. And I said, wow, this is going to be a long road. And, but I just kept fighting, man. I didn't stick my boo lip out. Right. I just went to work doing what I did. I always say you can be a victim or a victor. Right. And I refuse to be a victim. Right. I can blame people for my circumstances, saying, oh, boo-hoo, mama didn't love me, or, oh, Army took my leg and all the things, or I can just thank God for giving me the life that he has and just go to work. And that's what I did. I said to myself, I'm not only am I going to walk, but I'm going to run. And not only going to run, but I'm going to run a marathon. Right. And it was just slowly but surely, within a year, so here's the progression, right? And this is what I want people to get. Don't get focused on what you can't do. Get focused on what you can do.
Yeah.
Right. And what I mean by that, at the time, I couldn't walk. But what I could do push-ups. I could do sit-ups, right? I can do things that move my upper body. And do you know what a hand crank is?
Yeah.
Right? It's that bike that you push your hands to crank it. Well, I started riding that. I was at Walter Reed. They had some down there, and I'd get on a hand crank. I'd go run around or ride around Rock Creek Park and all that stuff. And there's an organization. They said, "Hey, man, you want to go do the Boston Marathon?" And I'm like, like true Army guy, right? Yeah. Oh, free stuff. How much free stuff do you got, right? I was like, Can my family come? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I'm like, yeah, free trip to Boston. Why not? And we went down there, and I finished 4th place. So it was one of those like happy, mad type deals where I was like happy I got 4th, but mad that I didn't train harder because I could have got gold. I didn't know I was that good at it, right? But that's what I could do. I just focused on what I can do, and I finally got a running leg, and then I started running a little bit. I ran the Army 10-miler, right? Because it was a hard thing. That's something that I hope everyone from listening to me, realizes is that every year – you should do something that kind of scares you. Yeah. Right? Just the thought of it, like, man, I don't know.
Stretches you outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. And that's just something that I've always done. And it's made me better for it. It's toughened my mind. It's toughened my body, my resolve. And that's where resiliency comes from, right? Just never quitting, never allowing yourself to be the excuse. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's what, I ran the Dallas Marathon. I finally did a full marathon. I did the Memorial Baton Death March, which was 26.2 miles with 35 pounds on my back. I was 6,000 feet above sea level, 2,000 feet of elevation change. I did that, and I did all those things because I said I couldn't, right? I'm like, I'm going to do this.
Well, you did something that's not only crazy, but you're the first one to do it. You're the first amputee to go to Special Forces Sniper School.
Yeah.
So how'd that come about?
My superpower is too dumb to not know I ain't supposed to try that.
What was that? Was that your idea? The Army's idea?
No, it was my idea for sure. So after I left my team, right, I didn't want to, obviously, because I was being rehabilitated, I didn't want to take up a spot on the team. Right. So I went to the ops det where all the training departments are, and I was on the sniper detachment helping out run sniper school. Mm-hmm. And after a while, I, in the way I run is like I can't be there and not be sniper qualified. And, so I asked if I could go, and absolutely, they said, yeah, sure, why not? And they did that, and they let me go, and it was the hardest, couple months of my life. They pulled no punches. I did every single thing they did. I always, in fact, they didn't even know I was one-legged for the longest time, right? Because if sniper school, the first couple weeks or so, it's all, laying on your belly, flat range, trying to shoot 1,000 yards, known distance, unknown distance, things like that, right? But when it comes into the field craft part of it, where you get in your ghillie suits, doing stalks and things of that nature, where you go out to the training area, and then you change into your ghillie suit, and I'm dropping trowel, and everybody's like, what the heck? And I'm like, yeah, man, game on, baby. You got a one-legged guy here doing the same thing you are. And it was awesome because, all the running guns, the scrambles that we would run, it's always for time, right? And they'd always post the scores, right? Pays to be a winner, right? Competition breeds excellence, right? And so that's what they would do is they print the scores out. And I'd always, whenever they did, I'd point it up to where I was, and I was never the last. I never was even close to the last. And I'll tell them, hey, check it out. The one-legged guy is not the weakest link, you know, and doing the final FTX, doing coming out of that helicopter with a 100-pound rucksack, moving to our objective and doing a hide for a while and all that stuff. I mean, it was definitely the hardest thing I ever did as a one-legged guy.
Yeah. That's incredible, man.
I was fortunate to graduate, which, by the way, definitely did not know that, like, the USASOC commander was there.
Yeah.
Like, big deal, first one-legged sniper, right? They were there. Well, I wasn't. Because right after we finished the course, I was like, hey, I don't need to be there at graduation, right? They're just doing this, whatever. Like, yeah, cool. I went on a bear hunt. Because during the guy's like, hey, can you go on this bear hunt? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so I literally was getting on an airplane, and when I landed, my phone had blown up. My team sergeant was like, hey, knucklehead, you didn't go to your graduation? And I'm like, well, they said I didn't need to be, the cadre said I didn't need to be there. I'm like, yeah, but you know who was there? I was like, oh, my bad. But yeah, that's something that I've just carried. I just won't ever quit, man. I'll never quit. Not only testing myself, but I'll never quit being the best at what God's given me.
Yeah. You have a motto that you repeat, lean forward and fight hard. What's that come from?
That comes from Sergeant Major Mark Eubanks. He, like, if there was a G.I. Joe for a Green Beret, it would be him. He's just this big old black barrel-chested, raspy voiced, Sergeant Major, and he probably don't even remember saying it. We were in formation one day, and he said, "Men, when times get hard, you're in that foxhole, you just got to lean forward and fight hard." And that's just it was a very visible thing for me on how to address life.
Yeah.
Right? That life's always going to punch you in the face. What are you going to do about it? Right? Are you going to be a victim, like I said earlier? Are you going to plant those heels firmly in the ground? And are you going to lean forward and fight hard? And that's just something that I use with myself in business. Being a business owner, man, it's hard. It's something that I didn't go to school for it. Right. And now here I am trying to figure out, how to run a P&L, how to recruit talent, how to, move strategy and all that stuff. And it just, just lean forward and give it hell.
What was that transition like? I mean, at some point you take off the uniform, the Army forced you out, or you chose to?
No, I chose to get out. I never will forget. So actually, sniper school was was the first time. And by the way, this is a very, grown up conversation with myself, because before it was definitely, I always had the mindset of, I'm in, I'm the Army, right? Again, like I said earlier, if God ever put it in black and white, he did it for me. And knowing how hard it was for me to do that, I remember thinking, no matter how awesome I am one-legged, I'm probably not better than a Green Beret two-legged.
Yeah.
And it's very vain of me to stay on a team, right? Because I wanted to go back to a team. I wanted to prove I could do it. I wanted to go back down range.
But that was for you.
A lot of eyes, right?
Yeah.
And having that humble pie and realizing no matter how much I want this, it's probably better to have a two-legged guy there. And so that's when I went to the Care Coalition. Now, granted, I could still train. I was a primary instructor for sniper school, which is awesome. But heck, I was in, at the time, 10, 11 years. I'm not doing that for another 9 years, right? And so I went to the Care Coalition. I'm like, hey, I know I want to stay in, but if I want to get out, what does that look like? And they came back with a solution, and I just felt God calling me there, and my wife and family, which I had 2 kids. Yeah, I had 2 kids at that time, and we moved to Dallas, and it's one of the best things I've ever done is to hang the hat up and move here because of the people that I've met and the relationships I fostered and what I'm doing now.
Or hang the beret up.
Yeah, but it's hard.
Yeah.
Because now if you ask me who am I can tell you I'm a warrior for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
If you'd asked me that 10 years ago, I'd have said I'm a Green Beret.
Yeah.
Right. And when your identity is in that, and now you strip that away, and I'm not around other SF guys because I left Fort Bragg, right? I'm not even around a lot of military people because I'm in Dallas. And so talk about fish out of water, man. And so it was a hard time for me, you know, because again, at the time I still drank alcohol. You know, fortunately I'd gotten off opioids at the time, but that led me to drinking more, right? Because I still had pain. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take the edge off and have me a few beers or a couple glasses or whatever, you know, but I just kept moving, and I never will forget. And I say that specifically, right? I just kept moving, right? I'm there, high school educated, don't have a college degree, you know, but every day I got up and I left. And my wife was like, babe, why are you leaving? You know, because you got toll roads, you know, you're paying for this, right? It's expensive. Why are you leaving the house? You know, so it was actually a confrontation point with me and her. And I said, babe, for my entire adult life, I got up and I've gone to work every morning. I don't know what's out for me out there, but guess what? I'm going to get up and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do something. It may be lunch with a guy. It may be going helping a guy, you know, doing a certain job. I remember one guy, a mechanic, I helped him put on a couple bumpers, right? But I left the house. And what that did was get me the network that I have now, you know, that it led me to being the first, I was the lead instructor for Chris Kyle's company, Craft, right? So Chris was, you know, Navy SEAL, American sniper, right? Everybody knows about. And which I always jokingly say, you know, I thought it was awesome that the Navy SEAL needed a Green Beret to teach for him. You know, I'm like, you just keep writing books, Navy.
And Travis Cox was there too, right?
Yeah, Travis Cox.
He was a Force Recon sniper.
There were some things that I think he did with us.
Yeah.
As an adjutant instructor for sure.
Okay, yeah.
But you know, and obviously that led to Chris dying, and you know, that was the catalyst for my sobriety.
What was it about that led you to sobriety? Was it?
I realized that we owe it to the fallen to live well. And what I mean by that is that's just what we know is drinking alcohol, right? As a redneck from Groesbeck, you drink beer, ride back roads. That's what I knew then. But in the military, you know, if first jump is a case of beer, right? When you show up to a team room, you better have a case of beer. First deployment, case of beer, all this stuff, right? And something good happens, you high five, you go have a case of beer. You know, whether you're drinking at a barbecue, drinking at golf, you know, whatever it is, you just what you do, right? Something bad happens, you low five, you say, hey man, let's go have a beer. And when Chris was murdered, I was actually at Fort Bragg. Like he asked me to go to Rough Creek with him. I'm like, hey man, can't help. I'm at Bragg, literally signing out of the Army. And whenever he was murdered, I did what I thought I was supposed to do, and I drank. And it was that night was the last night that I ever drank. And because that next morning I woke up, man, I was just mad. Mad I let him down. Right? Mad that if his life matters to me, I'm going to do that? No. Like, I owe it to him, not just to live, but to live well. Right? Because Chris don't have the choice of what type of husband he's going to be, but I do. Right? He don't have the choice what type of father he's going to be, but I do. And you know what the Bible say, when what the devil intends for evil, God intends for good in his glory. You know, it is horrible what happened to Chris. It is, I hate it for his family, you know, that his family don't get to see his kids, you know, that Jeff Kyle don't get to see his brother, and Wayne and Debbie don't get to see their son. Like, I hate that. But I let them know that because of that, my kids have a father that's the best that they're ever going to have. You know, and it's because, and by the way, and this is what I want people to know, I didn't quit drinking that day. I started living well. I woke up in the mirror. I woke up and looked at myself in the mirror with brutal honesty. Right? Brutal honesty is not just telling myself I'm good and looking inward and finding what's keeping me from being great. And what that, you know, what stood out for me, because I was good when I drank, right? Became a Green Beret, paid my bills, all the stuff. But I looked at, and I remember thinking, I can't, one time in my life, I was 30 years old. Again, been drinking since probably 14.
Yeah.
I never could remember one time me telling my guys, hey guys, I'm not drinking tonight. Right. In fact, it was the exact opposite. Boys, we drinking tonight. Like I'm a fun guy, not a fight guy. Right. And which validated what I'm doing. Right. Oh, baby, we're just having fun. Right. The boys are just having fun. And life's not about fun. Right. That's what I've learned. And so knowing that I couldn't remember one time me saying that, that's when I said, okay, I know what this guy over here looks like that has a beer in his hand. Let me see what this guy over here looks like that doesn't. And Chad, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Right. So opioids is the biggest pull towards something that I've ever had. Right. Seeing that bottle and knowing that it's there and what it can do to me and having that compelling just pull towards it. Alcohol is the most elusive. Right. It's that snake in the grass that you can walk around for years and it never bites you until that one time it does. Right. And now you have 2 Christmases. Right. Or now you have a DUI, or now you can't walk because you had a wreck drinking. Right. And, or all this stuff, man. And I always think about that time. My hands are up like this in the air, like Ricky Bobby when he says, I don't know what to do with my hands. Because that's what I felt like. Right. The first social interaction that I had was out at Rough Creek where Chris was killed. Chris loved going out to Rough Creek. We would do a Rough Creek shootout. Right. We have affluent people from Dallas pay a lot of money to come out and shoot with the American sniper, Chris Kyle. And I'll give you a quick Chris Kyle story. I always talk about him whenever we first knew that he was my guy. So again, I come from the sniper det. You're behind glass. You love heal and miss, right? Yeah. And we're out there with this civilians. They're hitting 1,000, trying to shoot 1,000. And I'm on spotting scope with my guys. Chris is about 10, 15 feet away on spotting scope, trying to get his guy on. My guy hits. And it's only 1,000-yard target, so we're shooting at the same target. And I'm seeing his guy hit left, right, down. I mean, he's just like a football bat, just can't do it. And about the 5th shot, I never will forget seeing that round hit about 30 feet low and to the left. And I hear Chris say, hit. And I come off glass. I looked over my right. He looked over his left. He looked at me. He gave me a little wink and a nod. And that's when I knew that's my boy, right? In his mind, that guy paid a lot of money to say he shot 1,000 yards with Chris Kyle. Guess what? He shot 1,000. He did it next. But so we had a memorial shoot after that, and we were having a social cocktail hour after training. And again, it hit me so hard not having alcohol in my system, not having something in my hand. And that's whenever I realized, okay, I got to go in on this, right? I got a problem, right? Because I always say I wasn't excessive. I was just consistent. Yeah. Right. I never bought more than a 6-pack. I never had more. I never had bought more than 1 bottle of whiskey. If I drank whiskey, I had maybe 1 or 2, glasses a night. It wasn't, like you see in the movies where guys drinking a case of beer or bottles after bottles and all this stuff. I was good, man. And so getting off that was the hardest thing. And I could tell you with full confidence after 13 years of sobriety that it's the best gift that I ever gave myself.
You know a guy named Tom Spooner?
Yeah, I do know that name.
He's a Delta Force, retired Delta Force guy, Green Beret. He has a program called Warrior's Heart in West Texas, and a incredible sobriety program. Veteran to veteran, or they do a lot of active duty as well. But anybody listening that has that battle, lots of great organizations out there. That's one of them. Warrior's Heart is one of them.
Warrior's Heart. They're out of Blanco.
Yeah,
Blanco, Texas, and they do great things. But the reason why I say that sobriety is the best gift, it was the foundation that's laid everything to where I am today. Because you started the conversation with me about, man, you're real, persistent in your faith. No holds barred, this and that. Because I'm sober, I can be that.
Right.
Because I have that clear head that I don't run from my problems anymore. Right. And this is what I'm trying to tell guys that now, like you're all these barrel-chested freedom fighters that do all this cool guy stuff. When's the last time you looked at your wife and you said, how can I pray for you? Right. When's the last time you did that cool guy stuff with vulnerability, right? Like, cause I can say that that losing my leg is one of the best gifts that God ever gave me, because it's taught me how to deal with struggle, right? That sobriety has helped me with that realizing, that my life is going to suck for the rest of my life. What am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? Am I going to go again, be a victim, or I'm going to be a victor? Right? And I'm not going to let him win. That guy that pulled that trigger, he ain't going to win. Because guess what? Since that day he pulled that trigger, first of all, he's not alive. Second of all, I now have 2 more infidels in the life, because I had 2, I have 4 kids now. So suck that, right? I don't die, I multiply, right? I've done so many things, brought people to Christ, like all the stuff, because of this struggle.
You've done a lot of amazing things. One of them is speaking. Like I said, you and I have spoken together before,
Right.
but I mean, you're an incredibly talented communicator and speaker, and you're the way you communicate your story and challenge people. I mean, I've recommended you a number of times, and you're always like one of the first people I ask for a recommendation. You're one of the first people always
I appreciate
recommend. So anybody listening out there who want John as a speaker, he does such a great job.
Yeah. So, my big thing that I do now, or my purpose in life now, is providing the next mission for veterans. And I do that through my company, Gallantry Global Logistics, right? Okay. We are a service disabled veteran logistics company that specializes in freight forwarding and just shipments of consequence type stuff, right? Server racks going in and out of data centers, ATMs into financial institutions, right? That high consequence of failure is what we do. And really, I got into that just as a God thing, and met my business partner, and we just want to hire vets, and that's really what we do, man. We signed a deal with Tractor Supply, being their sole provider of fulfillment and distribution for all their growth. And we're going to try to hire 30 veterans just with that one contract, and I never thought I'd be a Green Beret turned logistician, right? But I'm just so fortunate that he's done that, because there's a lot of fun in it. You're quite literally solving the world's problems every day, right? How do you get this product from, Djibouti, Africa, to Fayetteville, North Carolina?
Life doesn't move without logistics. Competent. I mean, there's a quote by Marine Corps General. I can't recall who, but he says, "Amateurs talk tactics, experts talk logistics."
That's right.
So
and like the redneck math that I did was when I found out that the guy that owns the Houston Astros, he owns a logistics company.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I can do that math. Right. Think about how many veterans we could hire if I had something of that significance.
Yeah. We also serve on the board of the Best Defense Foundation. You got the cap right there.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you guys do there.
Man, thank you so much for asking. I'm so humbled and honored to be on the board of directors for the Best Defense Foundation. BDF was founded by Donnie Edwards, right? He played football for Kansas City and for the Chargers for 14 years. And I think only 3 or 4 more people have more tackles than that has ever played football, right? He's just a phenomenal, great American success story, right? Grew up in Southern California, half Mexican, half Native American, 8 siblings in a 1-bedroom apartment, put himself through UCLA, then played professional football, for years and years and years. And now, his grandfather was in World War II. And while he was playing, he would take guys back to World War II, to Normandy for D-Day. And that's morphed to what we do now, to where we have 3 different programs. One's Battlefield Return, to where we don't just take guys to Normandy for D-Day, which we do that as well. We, as you know, we just got back from there. We took 23 guys this year, took 24 guys this year back to there. And I'm telling you, being on the sands of Omaha Beach with a guy that was there, telling you what he did, it's the most powerful experience you'll ever go through. And for both of us, right? For them and for us. But we've taken guys back to Iwo Jima, which I know you want to go now, and we're going to get you on the list next time we do that. We've taken guys back to Vietnam. That's just something that's near and dear to our heart, is making sure those guys that went there and liberated the oppressed, that they forever get that reverence and recognition that they deserve, right? Another thing that we do is a next gen program where we're training up the next generation, right? So the kids that are in college age, we allow them to come with us to all the battlefield returns, to let them see why we have a free country, right? To let them see the type of men that fought for the freedoms that they have, and to learn about it. And it's just been great to go with them. They also help with our other programs, and which is the second pillar or the third. So we got the Battlefield Return, the Next Gen, and then the Stronghold program. And really, that's what we do, right? So the Stronghold program, I say what we do, what brought me there, which is helping special operations soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines transition from their time. And we have a place at 10,000 feet in Utah where we bring guys in for a week and just love on them. We get medical professionals from the NFL. We mix NFL guys, obviously, with Donnie's network.
Yeah.
Man, we bring guys in, and for the whole week, they just love and honor each other. And man, we're just doing great stuff. We do Operation Overland that I'd love to get you on one year.
Yeah.
Where we take guys a week leading up to Memorial Day weekend. It's a tough week for us, right?
Yeah, we're out. You and I are out speaking probably everywhere.
All over the place.
Oh, I thought you mean a tough week for us, meaning
the veterans,
remembering the fallen.
Yeah, it's a tough week for guys coming in there and coming in on low, and it's a somber day where you got a lot of guys doing backyard barbecues. This guy's looking at a tombstone.
Yeah.
Right. And so my point was to bring guys together in Land Cruisers like what we're what we're used to downrange, but collectively together use that to come in on a high, man. And it's just been life-changing. And so in a nutshell, that's what we're doing. And I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Man, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, with the show being the Resilient Show, you've been such a strong person of faith, having endured so much and overcome so much. What would be one lesson of resiliency that you could leave with the audience?
There are a lot, but the biggest lesson that I've got to give is your faith in Christ.
Yeah.
When you think that we're an accident, that some bang happened, and billions of years later, out of some little blob in a puddle, now you walk, you have no purpose in life. But when you know that God loved you so much that he created you not only in his image, but he gave his only son to die for your sins, well, there's your value. And when you have that value, then you're going to take care of yourself, right? And when you value yourself, you're going to value others. Then you're going to treat others the same. I know your Mighty Oaks Foundation is big on the 4 pillars of resiliency. I really call it 3 pillars, and the spirit is the foundation that those pillars sit on.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to know that you're meant for more. You've got to know that what the devil designed for evil, God designed for good. Right? And you just got to know that no matter what, that when sin happens, grace abounds. Right? I was reading the book of Romans this morning. I think that was Romans 3:1, right? When sin happens, grace abounds. And just to know that this is for a purpose.
Yeah. Break that down for us. It's such a good verse.
So first of all, when sin happens, so people have got to realize that we do live in a fallen world, right? That when Eve ate the forbidden fruit, which, by the way, I don't think that was the first sin. I think the first sin was Adam being a passive man who was shoulder to shoulder with his wife and didn't stop her from doing the wrong thing, right? That'll preach all of itself, right? You want to bring the world back together, put men back in the house.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And not a passive man, men that stand, anyway, and lead,
yeah.
Right? And so because of that fall, we live in a fallen world, right? And because of that fallen world, sin is going to happen. And so you've got to realize when you're in this dark time, and by the way, sin had nothing to do with you, right? This just could be an attack from the enemy. There is spiritual warfare that's out there, right? So this could be the enemy attacking you just because of that. This could be a sin from someone else sinning towards you, right? Or it could be you're a knucklehead and you're sinning yourself, right? Whenever someone's like, man, I got to, the devil's coming at me with my finances. No, just stop spending more than you make, right? Yeah. So there could be some of that, right? But they need to realize that when you're in those dark times, God's with you. Right? That you're not alone. That you're not alone, that you can get through this. It's not going to be easy. I think people need to realize that life's supposed to be hard. Right? One of the first things that God told Adam was to subdue and cultivate. When's the last time you ever had to go subdue and cultivate the wild? That's some hard stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
even with modern technology, with a backhoe and a shovel, like it is hard to do that. And we are called to work. We are called to do hard things. We are called to be more than just a passive, easy thing, that Christ doesn't call us to comfort. And that's why I tell everyone that I don't ask God to make my life easier. I ask God to give me the will to endure what we have. And I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it. Because there's nothing special about me. Chad,
besides your name and your birthday, all the other cool things about you.
Nothing good comes easy. You got to put the work in.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make fun of that, but you can't.
No, you're right. It briefs well. You're
a pretty special dude, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I always tell everybody, sorry, I'm not taller.
Well, if you'd lost the other leg, you could have got stilts instead.
That's right. Yeah.
Who's JP Lane?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know JP. He's
I do.
Dual amputee, and he always makes those jokes about he got some stilts put on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Really
Man, I could not be more grateful for you to come on and the audience to get to hear your story, and hopefully I'd say to tune in and follow you, but they can't.
Yeah, I know.
So what are some ways that people can get involved in some of the things you're involved in?
Yeah, so John at JohnWayneWalding.com is the website where you can reach out to me for things like that. For this, from a social media perspective, that's just something that unfortunately I don't participate in. I think there's a lot of great things happen, but just not where I am. But yeah, just go there. You can reach out to me for that. And obviously look up Gallantry Global Logistics. If you're a guy that wants to get hired or a gal that wants to get hired, reach out there. Best Defense Foundation. We're doing great stuff there, helping guys. So
outstanding. We'll put some of that in the show notes below.
Okay.
But we have some great sponsors on this show. Smith & Wesson Firearms, Vortex Optics, you're drinking a holy water there.
That's right.
BioPro supplements and Allied Wealth Management. And so these companies make the show happen, and they are very thankful for our guest. And so Smith & Wesson is going to hook you up with a 1854 lever action Smith & Wesson, either in 44 Magnum, 45, or 357. We'll throw a Vortex Optic on there for you and get you some Gators eyewear to protect your eyes. I don't know how much you know about BioPro, but I know you still are in shape and take care of your body. And so it's a amazing, all natural growth hormone supplement. It's incredible. Most of the guys who come on here try it, fall in love with it. Yeah, hooked. It's really good stuff. So
I'd love to try it. I always tell everybody, I'm not anti-alcohol. I'm just anti not being awesome.
Yeah.
Right. I'm addicted to being awesome and stuff like that to help you get there.
It'll help you be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to give you, of course, Mighty Oak swag bag with some of my new books and stuff like that. But
awesome.
Man, it was great having you here. And I know the range got canceled on us today.
It's okay.
But we're going to go have some dinner tonight. Look forward to hanging out with you.
And Chad, I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you for what you do.
Oh man!
Thank you for using your platform to not make it about you, but to lift others up, and that we need more men that are founded in their faith, but also want to lift up others like that, man. So God bless you for what you're doing. You are a special guy, and thank you.
I appreciate that, man. I'm surrounded by amazing people, and I'm just a firm believer that all ships rise with the tide.
Amen to that.
We have to, as few of us out there, we have to lift each other up and lock arms in this fight. The cause that God's called us to is much bigger.
Amen.
Much bigger than something we can handle alone. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for watching. I know you had to have enjoyed and been challenged, not only inspired but challenged by John's story. If you like this, please leave a comment, like it, subscribe if you've not already subscribed, and share it. Share it with someone. Share it with as many people as you can. And if you're not already doing so, please join our Patreon, anywhere from $5 a month to $35, $90, I think $95 a month. You could get different levels of behind-the-scenes content, special lessons and teachings on different topics from some of our former guests on the show. In addition, you could send in questions to ask on the Patreon to guests like John, and as well as sending questions for Richie McGinnis and I to take to our White House briefings. So join our Patreon today, and you guys stay resilient, and God bless. Hey, what's up, Resilient family? I am so grateful for each of you who tune in every week to hear our episodes. We have such incredible guests and topics that I am passionate about, our team's passionate about, and we could not do it without you. So we're thankful for you. We love you. We appreciate you locking arms with us to be more informed, to become a more resilient community. And I want to invite you to become a tighter part of that community by joining us on Patreon. If you go to our show notes below, you can click the link and get dialed into our Patreon and get extra content weekly. You could join for $15 a month and get behind the scenes footage, get closer access to me. I have monthly Zooms that I'll be doing with some members of the community. And so we'd love to get more involved. Again, go below in the show notes and click the link and join today.